I was prepared to die that night though, because what I had to do had to be done. And there was no stopping me. There are allegations that I was bribed, US money, that I was smuggling gold. Nothing like that ever happened. I am saying it again. I could not drive a BMW 525, which was a vehicle that I own, or a Land Cruiser, and live this high society life and watch little children going to school. And you know they did not eat much, or they're not going to get lunch. How do you do that to people? We can make a difference. We just need to not be afraid to stand up for what we know is right, what we know is just, what we know is correct, and honestly, what we can see as fair.
Welcome to the Global Indian Podcast, the official platform for people of Indian origin, because let's face it, we are everywhere. Welcome back to our weekly show. Thank you very much for clicking on the link to find out more about this remarkable conversation. Now, you know, every week we go around the 50 shades of brown that is our community around the globe, plunging into the human experience of looking at what's it like to be us, taking a second look at the countries we now call home, and taking the big conversations we need to have. Now, this conversation is remarkable, and let's set the scene here. We live in a world where the great reliance on the integrity of politicians is at an all-time low. So just imagine this: you are flying high in your political party. Your country has now just had the biggest eaves fall of finances you can ever imagine, booming up the surpluses within the economy. But you don't like what you see. You don't like how you feel. So rather than doing the easy thing of voting along political lines, you do something extraordinary. You vote with conscience. This is today's story. It's about the remarkable life of Charrandas, a Guyanese politician who chose to do the right thing. By doing so, not only did he risk life and limb, but he also sent the political world spiraling. It is a remarkable conversation about grit, determination, and doing the right thing, especially more now than ever before. If you like what we do at the Global Indian Series and you want to find out more, it couldn't be easier. Simply go to our website, which is at www.globalindianseries.com, and you can find out more about this as well as other great stories from around the world, because together we're building a living encyclopedia about what's it like to be us. I'd like to thank our dear sponsors out there, including Nazran Roth, which is the platform for citizenship and residency advice globally, as well as ShareMe.com, the app for all your fitness, wellness, and beauty needs. I really hope you enjoy this remarkable session with an extraordinary individual.
And just move. Get up and just move. Get up and just move. Get up and just move.
I always told this quote when I was in Africa. I think it was in Nigeria. And the guy said, Rajan, if you think you're too small to make a difference, you never spent the night with a mosquito.
Mm-hmm.
I think for yours, if you think you're too small to make a difference, you haven't realized the power of one single vote.
There's a movie, you know, The Power of One,
Yeah.
with Lou Gossett Jr. He was a South African teacher in South Africa. And he was teaching a young white boy during the apartheid era. And the boy asked him, why is it your people can't read? Why don't you teach them? You're teaching me. And he said, of course, I can't teach them because that way we are not allowed to. And if I do, we will all be killed. But he told the little boy, he said, you can teach them. And the boy said, what? I'm only 10. How can I do that? And he said, you will believe that you can do it when you understand what the power of one is.
Yeah.
And so the boy said, how do I know that? He said, you will find it in nature. And sure enough, the kid was going up one day by the waterfalls, walked past the falls, and the story goes on to say, he saw the falls, the source of the water splitting up. And then he took one of these streams and went, and that was also splitting up. And then he went on one of them, and he went, and then he reached to the mountain, the foot of the mountain, he saw the water falling one drop at a time, coming into this little tricklet, and then a stream, and then they all merged, and they gave it a powerful waterfall. He ran back, and he told Lucas that he said, I can teach your people. Give me 5 of them. And so he started with 5, and the power of 1, the multiplier effect. I teach 5, and he made them promise that each one of them will teach 5.
Yeah.
And so that's how it was multiplied. Beautiful movie.
I think it's a testimony to your life. I think that before we kick off on the decision that changed the entire fate of a nation and quite possibly a region, why don't you introduce yourself, Charrandas, to the audience? Because you're obviously a big, well-known name in your region of the world, in the Caribbean, for reasons that we'll go into. Your history before entering into politics is interesting because it allows the audience to know why you took the decisions that you took. So you said you grew up in Guyana, is that correct?
Yes.
So run me through your parents were they in Berbice or?
Berbice, yes. Everything for me is Berbice.
So then throughout your life, you kind of grew up seeing your parents work incredibly hard.
Oh, yes.
And your brother just surviving every month as a school teacher. And then obviously you go off to Canada, luckily, and you educate yourself further. But what's really fascinating is despite having a career in real estate, you decided to get involved in law because you wanted to make a social difference to the country that you call home, which is Guyana. So from there to Trinidad back home to Guyana, and then
yes,
you enter into the world of politics. And to cut it short, you had seen what you thought was the current administration, which was at the time PPP, and you said, well, look, we need to do more for the community, and we have to stop the identity politics that you perceived was happening. And so you joined forces to do something that was a first in the history of Guyana, which was set up the AFC, which was Alliance for Change. And you thought that every decision you guys were making was for the betterment of the country. What happens next?
Well, after the AFC became subject to everything that the PNC did, I had to literally stay the course because our parliamentary system does not have a constituency basis arrangement. We are from a list, and if you vote against the list, you are automatically removed from parliament. And that does not allow you to sit as an independent at all. You're kicked out. So you're no more a parliamentarian. And that's what happened to me when I voted against the government on the 21st of December 2018.
Before we get there, Charrandas, I think the question is, why did you enter politics? I think that's important for the audience to understand. What were your expectations by entering into the world of politics?
Well, I'll tell you, honestly, I honestly believe that politicians, the president or prime minister, as the case may be, are the highest level of servants that people should have. And if you are hired, you have been selected and elected to, and put there to serve the people. How is it that you are benefiting more than the people? Something must be wrong with that arrangement. And so I saw the PPP then, before I joined the AFC in 2011, the PPP was filled with a bunch of people getting real rich. Now Vice President, at that time he was President Rajan, he has a mansion inside here that would belittle most of the homes in North America or even in England. And the man does not have a mortgage. So he must have been paid well as president. That is where I saw the corruption. Amongst that particular individual and the likes of him, those who were in his ministry, they all became very rich. And I saw the people remaining still below the poverty line, not being able to move up in life. The schooling system was the poorest ever. Education was the pits, because some of the teachers who taught couldn't even speak proper English, and they came through a training school. And those were some of the things that really affected me, because I used to pride myself in the education system in Guyana, and the fact that Guyana was the breadbasket of the Caribbean. Yeah. We have land that's about 40 times the size of Barbados. Guyana is an Amerindian word referring to the natives as Amerindians, the Aboriginal, well, the original people in Guyana as the Amerindians. It's a word that means land of many waters.
Yeah.
We have so much water in this country. We have so much land. We have so much natural resources. And this is all before oil. And yet our people are struggling to make a living.
Yeah.
And so the AFC, most of that though, was because of the racial divide. The PNC was a strictly or predominantly Afro-Guyanese party, and the PPP was an Indo-Guyanese party representing or populated mostly by East Indian people, and the PNC populated by the Africans. And so the racial divide that occurs only happens during election time. Our people do not pay attention to who is African and who is Indian, blacks and Indians, as we would say. We're just Guyanese, and we share a lot in common.
Yeah.
You know,
So then,
when I say share a lot in common, they'll celebrate our festivals, the festival of Diwali and the festival of Phagua. It doesn't matter what religion you belong to. Same with us celebrating Christmas and Eid and all these functions. So there was no noticeable racial divide amongst the Guyanese, only during election time, because the politicians will split the people up to capitalize on votes. And that we were hoping to stop. And the Alliance for Change, the AFC, did that, or was moving in that direction, because they had, in 2006, they had 5 seats. In 2011, when I started campaigning, we moved up to 7 seats in Parliament. And I figured in 2015, after the election, the no confidence moved. In 2015, there was another election. I said, if we had stayed as an individual party, we probably would have reached double figures easily.
okay.
And so in 2020, the next election year,
you joined with the premise of saying, I want to make a difference and I want to see every echelon of society benefit. So
Yes.
now you join into politics and you're there and you finally win the seat of power. What did you see that you didn't feel comfortable with?
First thing, once I was a government MP, I was looked upon as somebody who can do things, who can make some difference. So the people in my district, which is Region 6, they will tell me, because I'm a lawyer, they refer to me as counsel most of the time. Counsel, look, we need this, counsel, we need that. But I had no voice. When I even spoke to Moses Nagamutu, the then Prime Minister, or Ramjatan, who was the Minister of Public Security, they will say, all right, we'll take care of that. And it was like brushed aside. Nothing has been done. Nothing was ever done, depending on the request that I made. And so all I saw is that I'm taking a seat. I've taken a seat in Parliament. I'm simply keeping the seat warm for 5-6 hours at every session, because I couldn't say anything. I was not even asked to make a contribution. And so some of the things that they did, I'll tell you one of them very quickly. We have passed the Juvenile Justice Bill, and I voted in favor of that bill. What it says is if you're 14 and under, you cannot be criminally liable. You live in England, my friend. I think it's 10 in England. It's 12 in Trinidad. Why is it we have to go to 14? A lot of 14-year-old children over here, if you call them children, they have children of their own. And plenty of them are criminals. Why do we want to protect 14-year-old? Drop it to 12, but we had no say. That was one of them. Prime Minister Hamilton Green. Hamilton Green was a prime minister under the PNC. And in 1985, he was fired by then Desmond Hoyt, who was PNC and president of the country, leader of the PNC and president from 1985 to 1992. But Hamilton Green's pension at that time, based on his salary, should only have been like 100,000 Guyana dollars. We passed a bill that says not Prime Minister pension bill, but Prime Minister Hamilton Green's pension bill, exclusive to him. And this man is presently receiving 1.7 million Guyana dollars. That is about 8,000 US per month as pension. Imagine that. I don't think the late president or former President Obama or Bill Clinton is receiving that kind of money as their pension. But we are paying that to a stupid prime minister who retired or was kicked out of his job over 30 years ago.
Because there's a lot of obviously corruption that took place in the Alliance for Change and with the APNU custodianship there. But you
Let
joined
me
in
interrupt
because
you.
you're
Saying APNU, and it is quite correct, because the APNU is a team up of the PNC and a few of the smaller parties, including the WPA, which was headed by the late legendary Walter Rodney, Dr. Walter Rodney. And a few of the smaller parties teamed up to form APNU. And while we teamed up with them, the PNC and all these smaller parties changed their names to APNU. We joined up with them in 2015, but we did not change. We became, so the coalition read APNU/AFC. We still held our name. We still could have been identified as AFC, except in our actions. Our actions all pointed
the aim was
towards being dominated by the PNC.
So the aim for you was saying, let's alleviate poverty, let's stop the racial politics that took place with the PNC as well. And they saw you guys as being a goal towards making this happen. But what you quickly saw was this only got worse, because I think you told me off air.
Yes, it got worse.
The situation went from bad to even worse within a space of years there.
Not only that, remember that it was by the coalition, the AFC teaming up with the APNU people, that gave them, and I'm saying them, the power. They became president, ministers, and all these things. They had the control of the government. And they, by saying, Walter Lawrence, who was Minister of Public Health, said, I am PNC, my friends are PNC, and I will only give work to PNC. She did not even say APNU, you know.
But when she said PNC, was she saying, just to clarify, when she means PNC, is she talking about the predominant community of PNC, which is the African-based Guyanese?
Yes, precisely.
So she's not saying, okay, if you're a PNC supporter, you're one of us. She's saying, actually, you have to be of a certain ethnic bias in order to be part of us. She made that
quite clear, because with the smaller parties that teamed up and with us as AFC that formed the coalition, all she's saying, you guys are outcasts. We are the kings here, or the kings and queens. You're not going to get anything from us. And, you know, we made you minister, and you can stand up in public on a public platform and make such a statement. What are you saying to us? Or what are you saying to the rest of the people who are not of your clan?
So within the very, so you're saying within the very heart of government itself, there was deep divisions over ethnicity.
There was. And I'll give you another example. Basil Williams, who was Attorney General, that man removed about 6 East Indian lawyers from the Attorney General's chambers. Not one lawyer in the Attorney General's chambers was East Indian, from Indian origin, not one. He removed them all.
Why?
Now, if that is not racial, what is, my friend?
But why did he do that? And if your prime minister was an Indian origin, Moses Nagamutu, why could he not stop it? Surely as a prime minister, you have that.
Because Nagamutu was silenced. Was silenced by Joe Harman. Joe Harman was minister within the office of the president. He had all these portfolio. He simply controlled parliament, which should have been controlled by the prime minister. But Joe Harman was the voice that people did not hear. Nagamutu was silenced. In everything, Nagamutu had to consult Harman and couldn't do anything unless Harman approves. And that was, again, a slap in the face of us as AFC people.
And you're turning around and saying, we need to change because I got into politics to make a difference for people. And you're seeing this day in, day out, day in, day out. And now all of a sudden, Guyana has some of the biggest oil finds across the globe. So not only are they going to become wealthy, but they're going to become extraordinarily wealthy. But you saying that you saw corruption even in the very heart of an energy ministry, with one of the ministers themselves being gifted something incredibly inappropriate for his wedding day.
Compromised heavily by Exxon. Raphael Trotman was Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. Raphael Trotman had a wedding in Grenada, destination wedding. Exxon foot the bill. Exxon paid for a flight to carry his relatives and friends from Guyana to Grenada. You are the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. He was one of the signing persons who went to Texas to sign a deal or sign deals with Exxon and received a signing bonus. I'll tell you about that in a flash. But Raphael Trotman was heavily compromised. And I don't know how they even have the gall to stand up and not see that that's a conflict of interest. They publicly accepted bribes. They publicly accepted favors from the companies that they have to give business to or doing business with.
And I suppose the important part here is that it affected everybody in Guyana, the bottom echelons of society, which are both people of Indian origin, people of African origin, but also including those that are Portuguese, Chinese, Amerindian. Everybody indiscriminately that are suffering poverty became poorer because of these choices that the government made.
It didn't seem to bother them because they were living what we can describe as the good life. And they were getting better and better in their stupid ass good life. That's the way they were.
When was the moment for you that you realized enough is enough?
You know, when they closed the 2 sugar estates in this country and you put about 30,000 people out of jobs, when you multiply that by 4, 120,000 people were on poverty, were on literally on the breadline. You can't do that to people if you're leaders. You can't be leading people and leading them into starvation. Something must be wrong with what you're doing. And then you, yourselves, as leaders, all the ministers, including myself, I must add, we had this high society life. If, for example, if I'm to go to Berbice from Georgetown, we have to cross a bridge where cars will pay $2,000 and I was driving a Land Cruiser, I'd have to pay $4,000. But as a parliamentarian, I was exempt. I got a free ride on all the ferries and all the bridges where you had to pay toll. But the ordinary man who's not even earning goddamn dollar, if he comes across, he has to pay that or pay it in taxi fare, which was increased.
And on top of that, and these guys are now on the poverty line because over, as you said, over 170,000 people on the breadline. So then you took, I suppose, what should be marked in history as a turning point in the way that we should look at politicians, because I suppose given the current circumstances globally, a lot of people look at politicians in a sense of skepticism, that they're glorified salespeople that are really looking to benefit themselves. But there is, and I suppose there's something that an honorable gentleman in Guyana once said as well, that politics is a very noble profession, but the nobility has been met by the great reliance on the integrity of the individual. And so what you did was almost commit not just political suicide, but also personal suicide for your own business. Run the audience through the brave steps that you took that changed the very face and fabric of Guyana.
Well, you know what? When I decided, first of all, there was a local government election that was held in early November 2018. And the PPP, which was then the opposition led by Dr. Bharat Jagdeo, took a landslide. When I say took a landslide, they defeated all the parties in all the regions, dominated the local government election. And so on the 16th of November 2018, the opposition leader, Dr. Bharat Jagdeo, tabled a motion of no confidence and it was filed in Parliament. The debate was set for the 21st of December 2018 because from the 3rd of December 2018 to the 14th of December 2018, the first 2 weeks, it was the budget debate for us for the 2019 budget. It was on the 14th of December 2018 that we approved a budget of $300.7 billion for Guyana in 2019. And then the following week, the 21st of December 2018, was when the no confidence was debated in Parliament and voted on. But what prompted this thing, or what prompted me, or not prompted me, I should say, pushed me into this? When you listen to some of these government ministers, even during the budget debate, if you have a chance to listen to that, Joe Harmon, who is now opposition leader and wants to be president, he was saying, derogatory remarks were made about the opposition leader. If you want to show that your government is doing well, don't literally be a mudslinger here. Talk to the people in your debate about how good your government has been doing, the performance of the government, to show that, well, we deserve to stay in office, or we deserve a second chance.
Do it on your own merit, as well as achievements that you made in uplifting society.
That's right, but they couldn't even do that. So you saw in them a bunch of real stupid people, you know. And then when the no confidence was done and debated, it was put to a vote. How we vote in Parliament, it's en masse. The entire opposition side was called upon to vote. How do you vote? They all yelled out, yes. Then the government side, how do you vote? We all yelled out, and I'm saying we all yelled out, no. What happens then? The speaker declares based on the volume or the sound that one side has it. And he said, the government side has it, the motion is defeated. The opposition chief whip, Gail Teixeira, stood up, and you're allowed to do this. Honorable Speaker, we call division. The word division in Parliament means during a vote is we are now going to individual vote. And so that's when it happened.
So
they started from the front of the line of the PPP side, the opposition, and then they came over right through to our side. So you had 32 on the opposition side. And when it came to Rutherford, no. Rajkumar, no. C. Persaud, that's me. I said yes. One word only. And if you look at the video, you will see like electricity was pumped up everybody's body on the government side. They were shocked. But I had to do that because the people who were laid off, there were 7,000 of them in the district where I lived. Many of them were friends of mine. People I lived amongst for years. People I still live amongst. And I couldn't watch the torture in these people's faces. They couldn't provide for their children. And that's not an easy thing. If you're on your own, you can handle starvation for a day or two or three. But when you have to watch your children not getting food to eat, that is a killer.
And I suppose the difference is you didn't vote on party lines, but you voted on what was right for the country.
You know what? Like I said, and that's why I'm telling this, I hope that the audience can understand. There are allegations that I was bribed, US money, that I was smuggling gold. Nothing like that ever happened. I am saying it again. I could not drive a BMW 525, which was a vehicle that I own, or a Land Cruiser, and live this high society life and watch little children going to school. And you know they did not eat much, or they're not going to get lunch. How do you do that to people?
Yeah.
You're leaders, you're not criminals.
But also you saw incredible amounts of ethnic bias within your government. You joined in to stop that. But yet you saw lawyers being told to leave. You saw sugarcane workers, predominantly that of East Indian, or people of Indian origin. You saw your own community there suffering at the hands of this. And this, the role of a government is to govern the entire country and create national prosperity, not deeper economic divisions. So you stood up. You said yes. What happens next? Because I've seen the video and I was saying to you, if looks could kill, I don't think you would have been, you would not have been able to be alive for much longer than a second, because you could visually see that anger that was resulted in your face, because from that moment, realistically, the government should go into the new voting system and go for elections within 90 days.
Within 90 days. At that stage, the same day, the same night, the president and cabinet should have resigned, but they did not. They took it to court. And then was when you saw how our legal system is royally screwed up. Two judges, Janet Cummings, who was the acting chancellor, or still is the acting chancellor, and Don Gregory, they voted in favor of to defeat the no confidence, because they said 33 is not a majority in a house of 65. And where in this world is 33 not bigger than 32?
But I don't understand something, and excuse my ignorance, but as the general public goes, we vote for a party to represent not just our interests, but to actually help the country get better. But when you're in power, it seems that people vote for their own party. And then if you're a judge, surely your job is not to support the government in power, but to support the country. So why is it that much corruption that a person can get away with that? If they can't do simple math, are they fit for their position?
Well, these are judges who are seasoned judges. They've been in the business for 15, 20 years plus. And for them to rule the way they ruled, the judges, it was obvious that they were either paid or that they were so politically aligned They didn't care about justice. They wanted to have their party remain in power. And
But
then
this is,
we had to
but I
take
think
it-
it should be noted, this is on the eve of the world's largest oil find. So Guyana in the next term, which is now, will be going from a 2 billion economy to a 22 billion economy. So there's a lot at stake, wasn't there, over that
there,
vote that you made?
there was at that time. And remember, we did not harvest oil until 2020, early 2020. The first shipment of oil, or 3 shipments of oil, were taken out, and then we were paid. But because the government at that time was deemed illegal, the monies were frozen in the US federal bank. So the coalition did not touch a cent of the oil money, except for the signing bonus, which I have questions about. But the oil money was frozen there. So with all they were fighting for, you could have seen. And I think it's not more concern was not so much of what they could get, but it's what they had, and they had to hide. These people, imagine Joe Harmon, through companies of his own and friends of his own, there's all kinds of assets in his name. And that man, he was not even a successful lawyer, he was such a dunce. And he's the opposition leader.
So then, if everybody, so here's a question then. Obviously, we're all people of Indian origin. I know India's been trying to do a lot more with Guyana, with the LOCs within the region. They could see, as well as everybody else, that there's such disarray, that there's such high-level forms of corruption. And it's not just hearsay, but there's evidence behind that. What was the international response to that?
I'll tell you.
Like, in other words, so what the question is should we really be putting our faith in politicians as much as we have been doing? Because Guyana is a great example of what could go well, but also the reality of the situation on the ground.
Let me add to what you're saying there. We are watching the United States of America right now. Donald Trump is doing exactly what the PNC did to us in Guyana. He's doing it to America. He's claiming, filing claims of corruption, fraud, miscounting, or whatever. And nothing can be substantiated. In our case, the government claimed that the election was fraudulently conducted, that dead people voted. People got up to vote and then they went back into their graves. Those were the kind of stupid remarks they were making. And seriously, they took it to court. But our highest court for us in Guyana sits in Trinidad, is the Caribbean Court of Justice.
Yeah.
And so from the Court of Appeal, after those 2 judges made their political ruling, and I'm saying political ruling, I've said that so often, I'm saying it publicly, I hope they decide to sue me someday for it. But it was a strictly political decision. There is nothing to support such a ruling. They used a case called the Vanuatu case that says you must divide by 2. So if you divide 65 by 2, you get 32 and a half. You get 32 and a half, you round it up. So both sides will have to be rounded because you can't leave one side. You have 33. And then you plus 1. When you do that, you have 34-33. It is still a 1-seat majority. You started with 33-32, and you move to 34-33. It's still a 1-seat majority.
So
but here's the catch in all of that.
If there's that much corruption at the top, should we really be trusting politicians?
I will not. But right now, I'm gambling heavily. And I'll tell you, with the way they were going with that new vote system that they used, you will end up with 34-33. That's 67. You can't have 67 votes when we are only 65 members sitting in Parliament.
Yeah.
And 2 judges in the Court of Appeal in Guyana was trying to tell us that is what it should be.
Okay, so here's the thing. So you make this vote of no confidence. It sets up a whole whirlwind. At any time, were you scared for your life, Charrandas?
That night I was. I honestly, I was prepared to die that night though, because what I had to do had to be done. And there was no stopping me. I wrote letters to my son and his family, my daughter-in-law, and the kids. And then I wrote to my siblings, to my nieces and nephews, because I knew I was going to die. When you know the nature of the people, you know that's what's happening.
Wow. Wow. And what about if we go to the present day now, elections took place almost, it feels like 2 years after that vote, which is
March 2nd,
ridiculous.
2020.
And the government changes. And I had the pleasure of meeting with Dr. Irfan Ali earlier this year in Guyana. And so there's a new government in place, and you've got a young leader who has not only empathy for the situation, but has a desire and will to want to change things. Where do you fit? Because people must be thinking, you must be public enemy number one for the reason of, one, you fought against the corruption of your current government and you were prepared to put your life down to benefit the people. But on the other side, I think a current government would know, and the people of Guyana would know, that you're also prepared eagerly to make sure what is done right for everybody in Guyana. So not only would you be almost looked at from the PNC, your former party, with hatred, because ultimately they would have got the oil finances, but also how does the PPP see you? Do they see you as a renegade activist that is prepared to dig a thorn in the side if they do something wrong?
You know what? I have doubts about that, but Mr. Jagdeo or Dr. Jagdeo, I've been in Guyana for over a month, has not said a word to me, but I've spoken to the president on a few occasions, and his biggest concern is my safety, because there is still fear, and I'm saying fear, or maybe concern, that the people may want their pound of flesh, and they really wouldn't care if I bleed. So I've been given security, paid for by people I don't know, and it's in an effort to keep me safe. So I must say that, if not all, I've had words with various ministers in this present government, and they've all expressed gratitude. The Commissioner of Police acting, Mr. Hicken warned policemen to answer to any call that I make, that I must not be harmed in any way, and any protection they're ready to that I need, they must offer me. So that's from the highest level. So I think honestly that the present government has recognized, and I will say this, I think they're grateful that I took a stand on the 21st of December 2018, and they are now the direct beneficiaries, because the coalition never planned on having an election, you know. They were talk of declaring a state of emergency in 2020 before constitutionally due election. And then they were going to run for another 2 years. And what they were doing, they were registering Haitians who had come in the country. And they were looking to have a brand new voters list after having done house-to-house registration, because that's the only way you can add these.
So here's a question then. With this being known, why would anybody still vote for the PNC? Why would anybody want to follow a party that done such corrupt practices? Is it literally that they are race baiting to only get a community that they feel that they can ostracize and say, we need to have numbers together?
Well, you're saying race-based. I will say tribal. They're very tribal. They will vote for the PNC because it's a predominantly African party. And the leaders, 90% of them are African descent people. So it didn't matter what wrong they did, how corrupt they were. These are people who are so tribal in their behavior, they will still vote for them. And that's why they got, the PPP only won by about 7,000 votes.
Wow.
With all that has been happening, because the people are not looking beyond to see the corruption.
So is Guyana, is this the mark of a new Guyana? Do you think the present government will be able to do what other governments haven't been able to, which is create true unity within the country?
I honestly believe, and I trust Dr. Irfan Ali. We just mentioned, do you want to trust politicians? I've said no, but I'll tell you, I have trusted Dr. Irfan Ali literally with my life. And right now, all I'm asking is that you make the Guyanese people happy. And he's doing just that. My friend, he goes on weekends and late evenings. He meets with people house to house. He goes in villages. just recently, they're still not quite finished distributing liquid cash of $25,000 per household. If you have 250,000 households, you're looking at about 6 billion going into the economy suddenly. Because it may seem like a small amount per household, but they all will spend it quickly.
Yeah, and it adds up significantly. Do you know what? It's funny because I was in Guyana 5 years ago, and I had the opportunity to meet with, at that time, it was your Prime Minister, Moses Nagamutu. And then I met with your Minister of Finance, and it was the first time in my life that I ever had such disdain for the word of politics, because what I realized quite quickly that every decision he was making was based on an ethnic bias rather than economics. And I remember at the time I had met with various ministers because we were looking to do something that would have brought the community together in a very powerful way, but also had a look at what identity means. But their response was down to, and in want for a better word, was down to a bias on skin color rather than that of actually as a community we need to do stuff. So for you to have taken that standing point, I think not only depicts a stronger future for Guyana, but I dare say it actually depicts a very strong future for politics as a whole, because not anybody would do that. A lot of people go into politics to be self-serving. But what you did was shift that.
Well, a friend of mine, he was, I don't know if its status has changed, but he was Minister of Public Security in Jamaica, a guy named Stuart. We met in South Africa. Stuart said, in no uncertain terms, that he's proud of what I did. And if I'm deemed to be a national hero, he is saying I'm a regional hero.
Absolutely.
Because what I did will have opened the eyes of politicians in the entire Caribbean, and more so, to some extent, worldwide. But
absolutely.
particularly in the Caribbean. And so what you had with this election that occurred on the March 2nd, and the madness that was coming down, you know, if you're going to steal, why do you want to do it in public or in daylight? Go when nobody can see you. These chaps were stealing an election in broad daylight and under the watchful eyes of hundreds of cameras.
But what should be the international's response now to the PNC, in your opinion?
Well,
how should governments around the world, like you're speaking to on the podcast, to governments in the UK, through to Malaysia, worldwide, should they think about Guyana presently, and how should they react to this party that was so barbarically corrupt, that used race as an underlying venture to make themselves wealthy?
You know, I hope that they never forget that. But right now, most of these politicians in the coalition, the leaders, they have had their visas revoked to the United States, so they can't go there. I am suggesting that other countries do the same thing. Let them stay here. Let them live here. Let them enjoy what the people are getting. But you know what? They will benefit. Because the PPP, I will say this publicly, cannot, I don't care who is saying what, cannot be deemed to be a racial party. If you look at the ministers, from the Prime Minister, you have several Afro-Guyanese who are ministers in this government.
Absolutely. And I dare say, even before that, though, under the reign that you had with Donald Ramatal, one thing that he used to say when he was on the podcast was, we wanted to be a party for the people.
For the people.
Yeah. Governed for the people. And
by the people of all ethnic groups.
Yeah. And it seemed to me that the only people that were ever opposed to that was the opposition, which was now the opposition, the PNC party.
Yes.
And the evidence of that is what you witnessed firsthand. Because, and Guyana right now is obviously, with this sign-on bonus, if you can run us audience through here, they received a sign-on bonus. How much of that money was injected into the economy? How much of that money actually helped people?
First of all, the signing bonus was received in 2016. It was only in 2018, listen to this now, only in 2018, during a parliamentary budget debate, that the issue was raised, and it was disclosed that they received 18 million US as a signing bonus. My friend, Brazil received $750 million US as a signing bonus. And we have oil that will belittle the oil find in Brazil. Why are we taking $18 million?
So
again,
then where's that money gone to then, Charrandas?
Well, Joseph no, Carl Greenidge, who was then Minister of Foreign Affairs, he said that the money was used to pay lawyers at the International Court of Justice
Is this
to
the
defend
same
Guyana.
gentleman who had a secondary passport outside of Guyana?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
which is illegal. Is that correct?
that's right. He was also one of the members removed from Parliament because he was holding dual citizenship. And then Winston Jordan, the Minister of Finance, whom you say you met,
Yeah.
he said the money was invested and he's already earned 35,000 US. So one has to be a lie.
Wow.
Up to now, we don't know. We know one thing for sure. The US 18 million signing bonus, if it was 18 million, let's assume it was never put in the consolidated fund. They were looking to deposit it in the Bank of Guyana in a separate account that they created, and then it was exposed. So again, we still don't know where that $18 million signing bonus is.
So they took 18 million as a signing bonus, but yet they put over 170,000 people on the breadline.
Yes. And the signing bonus is still nowhere to be found. I hope that our Attorney General now can put a team up there to go and find it, because it is money that belongs to the nation.
What is your advice to the youth out there who are considering a life in politics? Because you've been there, you got the t-shirt, you felt the pain of it, and also you put your life on the line for it.
You know, I'll tell you this much. If you're 14 today, it means when we took office, you would have been 9 in 2015. Let's assume that you're 10 years old, then you know what the coalition did. And today you're 14, you're seeing what the PPP is doing. So by the time another 4 years go by, you'll be 18 and of voting age, you will be in a position to make a decision comparing the coalition with the present administration. And I'm hoping that our youths are not blinded by race and not voting again because of what their parents did or the party that their parents like. Vote mainly on performance, on, if you want to call it, policies, and on issues, so that your choice can be based strictly on the performance of the government in relation to the people. One of the things that I asked our government, then the coalition in 2015, 2016, I said, look, we have oil, but our people in Guyana don't know anything about oil except to put the pump in your gas tank and you pump gas. Why do we not introduce at our university a program, a degree program, a 4-year program, oil and gas, oil technology, something to do with oil, so that our youths who are at the university can have maybe 100 graduates per year in oil technology, in something to do with oil, so they can hold higher positions in the oil business, which is going to dominate Guyana.
Yeah,
That
local
has not
content
happened.
hiring. Yeah.
That has not happened. So our youths are still geared heavily to wipe up the floors in the oil spill and to clean the mess that they make, because we are not qualified and we are not being trained to work in the oil business. And that's one reason why Trinidadians have dominated the oil business right now in Ghana as we speak, and a lot of the
Absolutely.
foreigners.
Absolutely. It's the final question. What does it mean to be Indian to you, or person of Indian origin? Because I know we speak about the liberal identity, and what you did was not because of an ethnic bias. You didn't do it because you saw yourself as being a person of Indian origin, but you did it because of the ethics that is derived from your pure humanitarian approach of saying we all need to do well, regardless of your perceived ethnicity. But what does it mean to you? How have you taken this identity of Indianness to mean that it is much more than skin color, but a duty of care for all?
My friend, I have learned during World War II, some of the fiercest of fighters in the World War were the Sikhs. They defended the Khyber Pass and they held the Khyber Pass. We need to understand that as Indians living in a country that was dominated for 28 years by the black or the African dominated party, and then again another 5 years, we can make a difference. We just need to not be afraid to stand up for what we know is right, what we know is just, what we know is correct, and honestly, what we can see as fair. And to me, what I did was not for Indians, or
Yeah.
Indians alone, I should say, because predominantly Indians in Guyana, especially in Guyana, they have a way of surviving. And most of the time, you will find that the African families suffer a lot more because
Yeah.
they don't have much in terms of resource. And so they don't have a lot to fall back onto. And that is why I'm saying, once it is right, it is fair in particular, stand up for it. And you may
Yeah.
have consequences. That night, and you'll hear a threat when you look at the video, Charrandas, you're going dead tonight. It was no idle threat. It came from Jennifer Wade, a sitting parliamentarian in the government at that time. And that
So
was no idle
hang on.
threat.
A parliamentarian in the seat of power threatened your life.
Yes, loudly voiced it for the world to hear. Jennifer Wade is the name.
That's
So
and we
there
wonder
was
why
no
we have
idle
a
threat to
disdain
my
for
life.
politics. Because
And
everything
then,
you did, as he rightly said, your version of Indianness is standing up for what is right. And what is right is for every community to prosper, every community to be able to say, hold your head up high, get the resources of education, being able to
yes,
achieve the basic necessities, and being able to then say, through this human experience, I can express myself and learn and do more for each other. What a fantastic, open, clean, clear conversation. I suppose if all politicians were to think like that, put people before politics when you vote, do not vote on party lines, vote for the constituents that you serve, it makes a difference. It puts the world in a better place. And I dare say we would not be in the situations we are finding ourselves in 2020 where there's a massive COVID. It reminds me of the wise words that His Excellency Donald Ramotar once said, the former president of Guyana. He said, "We are losing our nobility for this profession. We need to bring that back in." And I suppose here in the mantle that's been picked up by Charrandas, it's such a strong message globally. Next time when you go to vote, wherever you may be, do not vote for the glitz, for the glamour, or what you think politicians can give to you. Vote upon the results that they have provided, their actions that determine whether you should have a great reliance in the integrity that they own. Unfortunately, in this weird, wacky world, there are only a few politicians out there that I know of that have really made a marked difference. So if you're thinking about joining that world, make sure you're doing it with the cleanness of who you are. Because you yourself will know how close or how far away you are from doing good in this world. If you like what we do, I'm going to ask you a massive favor, and it doesn't cost you anything. All I need you to do on your platform in which you're listening on is to like, share, and subscribe. Because with your help, we get to build the world's largest living encyclopedia of people of Indian origin. And importantly, if you have a story to share, make sure you go to the website, fill in the small details, because we'll love to cover it. Until next week, I hope all remains well. Stay safe.